welcome everyone to today's workshop on applying for graduate courses in development studies. Just to give you an outline for what we're going to be doing today, I'll very quickly introduce Project EduAccess and introduce you to the panelists for today's workshop. They'll then take you over, just give you an overview of what development studies programs look like, why you should consider doing a course that aligns with development studies, how do you choose your course, what the application timeline looks like, whether you require work experience, what are the different application components and scholarship opportunities, after which they'll speak to you a little bit about career options available after you do a master's in development studies, and then give you general tips that will help you for your applications for master's in development studies programs. So about Project EduAccess, if you're joining us for the first time, then we do sort of let you know we're a network or an organization that believes that access to higher education, leadership, and professional opportunities is a privilege that most people from marginalized communities are systematically denied. And we at Project EduAccess attempt to improve inclusivity in these spaces by removing some of these barriers for marginalized communities in the global south. We do this by providing mentorship, engaging in advocacy, and we also run capacity building workshops both online and in person. And today's workshop is an attempt as part of our initiative of making information more accessible. To join us in doing so, we have three really wonderful panelists. We have with us Anusha, who did an MPhil in Development Studies from University of Oxford. We have with us Janani, who did an MSc in Water Management and Governance from the UNESCO-IHE Institute for Water Education. And then we have with us Shrutija, who did a Master's in Gender and Development from the Institute of Development Studies at University of Sussex. Thank you so much to the three of you for joining us today and for speaking to everyone. Shrutija, I will hand it over to
you. Hi, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, whichever, wherever you're based out. So like Ms. Bar just told you about Project EduAccess and development studies, let me briefly give you an overview of development studies. So when I'm often asked a question of like, so what degree have you done? I say I've done development studies, and people often say, oh, development of what? Of whom? And so I have to partially answer them the question with saying the answer that, well, development of the communities, of the society, of the people, of the marginalized communities, so on and forth. And that's partially true, but it is way more than just the statement I just conveyed to you all. It is an interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary field. And when I say that, I mean it is connecting the socio-economic, political, cultural aspects of development, of a particular conflict, of a particular policy. So it basically makes you question and urges you to inquire the various events that are happening around, the conflicts that are going around, that they're not in vacuum, that they all are a consequence of what has been happening throughout history, whatever is happening, who possesses the power. It makes you question. Um, and so the programs of development studies aim for you to adopt a multidisciplinary approach, right? Like I just mentioned, it's not in vacuum. It tries to pull in from different disciplines and discourses like sociology, political science, environmental studies, anthropology, gender studies, and so many more. So the different programs that are offered at universities pertaining to development studies basically are a holistic sort of a component, right? And so what they primarily want you to do is they will provide you with the theoretical foundation. It can be understanding society, economy. They basically want you all to be at a level playing field and then move on and then urge you to question and get into the more nuanced understanding of the field itself. So it helps you to question the policies and interventions that are running around in the world, really. And the program really depends and varies from university to university. Oxford, um, LSE, IDS are some of the institutes that come to my head at the moment, and they have wide range of courses that they're offering. And these courses are dependent on the electives that you have, the time frame that you study in, certain requirements that might be for the course itself. So it is dependent and is structured differently according to the approach methodology. And it's also dependent on whether it's a taught masters, which is basically assessments, and it's mostly like a 12-month course, or a research masters, which basically focuses on honing your research skills, and if you want to get into and venture out in the area of research. Can we move to the next slide, please? Thank you. Now, why development studies? I think I've spoken about development studies in the programs as an overview, but I also want to bring you or point out the fact that it also probes you to have an in-depth inquiry. It is creative and critical, and that is one of my learnings from development studies. While it has made me question, it has made me ask the question, the why question or the how question. It has also encouraged me to be creative with my thinking. And so it offers a wide range of academic and political debates. It cultivates your critical thinking of different events that are going around in the world, of the uh, for instance, the Palestinian conflict that we're seeing at the moment can be a consequence of numerous historical events that have taken place. And that is basically development studies. I mean, this is just a very basic idea, but it offers you a lens to really understand what is happening. And it basically, individually, it hones your lens. Um, and so there are programs which focus on research methodologies. They might be heavy on qualitative research, like, for instance, IDS, uh, or the course that I did, Gender and Development, focuses on qualitative research, and I have done a qualitative research as a part of my course. And so, as we'll move on, you will see that you have different career options within development studies, ranging from NGOs to INGOs to government agencies, private sector, social enterprises. There are a lot of boutique firms that are cropping up in different parts of the world at the moment. So, there are social enterprises which are trying to marry the social and the profit side of the society. I mean, we have debates about that, but if we can move forward with the slides. Thank you, Ms. Ba. All right. How to choose the best course for you. So I am somebody who had done development studies in India. I studied from Tata Institute of Social Sciences, and then I gained some experience, and then I moved here to have a more niche understanding of development sector, and that is why I did my specialization in gender and development. So quite frankly, i I have gone from a very general sort of generic program of development studies and how it happens to more specialized area of gender and development. And so the kind of courses that different universities offer to you are dependent on the electives that they are. There can be courses like mine which are on gender and development. Then there are courses on international development, and the general development studies courses also have electives pertaining to that: governance, environmental development. These are just areas within development studies, right? So development studies as a discourse is an umbrella term. You can go through a direct and general program and pathway of understanding an array of specialized areas and themes, or you can also dive deep into specific aspects of development studies, for instance, gender, being my area of expertise. So I would encourage you to really review the curriculum, um, and understand where your interests lie. There are also courses which, for example, provide you a mix of general and specialized. While I was doing my research for development studies, I remember there's a course called Masters in International Development Practice, which is offered by Monash in Australia. And they sort of follow this trajectory of mix of general and specialized. So it's really about reviewing what the institute is offering, what the electives and the curriculums look for you, and what are you interested in. And of course, it's always great to reach out to an alumni and see and assess if you would need sort of help in placement or research, and what sort of requirements do the universities have, and how well you can understand the course through an alumni's perspective. And of course, some of us are right here, so you're more than welcome to ask questions. That's my bit. Thank you.
Oh, hello. Thank you so much, Shrutija. You said the base there for people. So now moving on to knowing about the timeline of the application for the courses like developmental studies. Myself being a person who secured a scholarship to do my master's in the Netherlands, I can start by saying a well organized application is a success in itself. So now let me break down the timeline for you. Basically, when you are planning to apply for any course, I would say you have to do your personal research on what courses you are supposed to look into, what is the timeline of the particular course, what are the financial support that the particular university is providing you, and what are the external financial support that you could secure for the particular course. These are some researchers that you have to have with you well ahead of the timeline. That will actually, set you in the right direction, I would say, because having things to the last moment, you might lose certain things. So start it well ahead is my a little tip, I would say, because I did the same as well. So now, breaking down the timeline, so once you have the research done and when you have things in your hand, most of the universities open their application process by the start of May. So, and when you see the application, generally the things that you will have to see through or what are the prerequisites that you require for the particular course. And few courses, they require you to have GRE, few require you to have IELTS. For example, the course that I did not require me to have an English validation. Since most of us have done our bachelor's or master's in English, few universities do not require, but few still require. So you have to check those points well in advance and book your GRE or IELTS exams, give it, have the scores in hand before applying for these applications. And later is the document collection, I would say. So make sure that you have your transcripts, make sure that you reach out to the recommenders who are going to write you recommendations, and make sure you have at least a skeleton structure of what you're going to write, what course you're going to apply to, so that it'll be easier for you to collect points when you start writing for your SOP. So when you prepare for the master document, August, September, October, November, you almost have 4 months to prepare for the master document. I would ask you to start it well in advance and not postpone things, because it becomes hasty when you postpone. So make sure that you first approach your recommenders, and make sure that you approach people who know you very well, probably your faculties or someone that you've worked before. So you will have a confidence that okay, they're going to write something good about you, and just don't have this hope they're going to know everything about you. Give them some pointers so that it will be a very good recommendation that could go to the university or for your financial securement. And then what I would say is sit on your SOP, and sitting on your SOP, uh, don't take it lightly. Okay, it's just 200 words or 500 words, because that is something that is going to talk on behalf of you to the academic people or the people who are going to decide your scholarship. So make sure you put a lot of time on your SOPs, that is your essays, and start writing it, do a draft, send it to the people or your peer reviewers, whoever you think are very good with the language and people who know you very well, and get their feedbacks, redo it again, do it again. I would say go through your SOPs or essays at least 4 to 5 times, get feedback, again go through it. I mean, there's no time wasted in writing your SOP, is what I would say, because that is going to speak on behalf of you to whomever is going to look at your application, right? So once you have your application in hand, and of course, when you look at when you do your research, I recommend also for you to have a timeline. Okay, this is when the application is going to start, this is when the application time is going to end, so you will have a checkpoint on when you're supposed to finish everything. So here we have indicated you a very it's not a very hard deadline because it varies from each universities to universities. Some universities have summer intake, spring intake, some have a very random intake. So I would advise you to look into the universities, the particular specialization that you are applying for, and all that very particularly before going through any of these processes. And once you get your essay ready, get back to your recommenders, make sure that they're done their part in time. Sometimes you might have to submit yours or they will have to send it directly to the portal. So there are two kinds. So make sure that your recommenders are sending their recommendation in time. That is very, very important. Or if you have to collect it from them, make sure that you're collecting it in time, because you might want them to make some changes, just in case, if they're ready to share it with you, then you can always reach back to them and ask them if this could be done this way to give me more chances. So there's no harm in it. So once you're done with it, I would tell you, review your full master document at least 2-3 times. Make sure there is no mistake. You've not left out anything. Your transcripts are clear. Your SOP is clear. Your work experience, if you have anything at all, it is all in place. Make sure everything is in place and submit your application. So this process takes from May to December. And I would tell you, even before the month of May, make sure you start the process, like looking at the courses, the deadlines, what kind of specific course you want to do, what specializations you want to do. You want to do a research based one, or you want to do a CTS based one. So that these are the different things that you have to consider before getting into the course and getting into the application process itself. So I would advise you to look into this. And sometimes few universities are not very hard on the deadline. So in those cases, if at all you missed it for some reason, you can always write to the particular course or the university to ask them if you can still apply for your application. And few universities, they have a different deadline for people who wanted to apply for scholarship and people who wanted to just apply for the course and do not require a scholarship. So be very sure about that as well, because the sooner you secure your seat or the course in the college, the sooner you can start your financial documents for your scholarship and things like that. So keep in mind that you are very, very sure about the deadlines of the application, of the scholarship application, and everything in mind before you start any of this process. Yeah. And don't be very strict on the timeline. Start it well ahead, so that will put you in a better spot. So this is my small tip from my own experience. Yeah, the next slide, please. Yeah, now coming to the work experience. So it's not 100% required for you to have a work experience when you apply for any courses per se, but there are few courses which require to, like for example, the course that I did water management and governance. We had a prerequisite where, okay, if you are a mid professional, then you can apply for a particular scholarship, and if you're very new, then you have a different kind of scholarship which will cover half of your tuition fee. So there are different kinds. If you fall under a different category, then accordingly you can proceed your applications with. But having no work experience should not stop you from applying for these courses until you have the passion for it, until you can align your academic credentials, the works that you've done or the paper that you've written to the course that you're going to apply for. And if you justify why you really wanted to be in the developmental sector or whichever specialization you're going to take under it, then I think it should not be a problem for you to go ahead. And there's one scholarship that I came across. It's called the JW Japan World Bank Scholarship. And they give particularly scholarship for people who have more than 3 to 4 years of work experience. So if someone have already worked in the sector, then your chances to get that scholarship is high. And there are applications where you can just apply for, like for example, this OKP in Netherlands, where if you just are out of your college but you've worked or you've done some internship in the developmental sector, then you're more than welcome to apply for that particular scholarship. So it actually depends. So you need not be very strict about, oh, I don't have a work experience, so I just cannot apply for any scholarship. Or you've already worked in the field and you think you are too old to apply for a scholarship. No, it's not like that. So always go ahead. But again, coming to the course in itself, if you're putting the scholarship aside, I don't think it should be a problem for you to get the course, as long as you are passionate towards it and you make sure that they know that you're passionate towards that particular course from your essays that you're going to write for the application. Yeah, now the next slide, Michelle. Okay, now coming to the application itself. So there is no set kind of application components, because it definitely varies from each university, and also it definitely varies from each department within the universities itself most of the time. But these are the very common or the general things that you have to keep in mind, which is CV and resume. I mean, again, I could see that Oxford is not taking it anymore, but few other universities are still requiring it. So again, make sure that you know what is required, what is not required before getting into applying for an application. Because sometimes if you're going to apply for something in Oxford and if you put too much of time in creating a resume, then it's of no use, because they don't require resume anymore. But on the other end, if an university is going to focus on your resume or CV, then it depends. So make sure what kind of application it is and put your strength to whatever is required. And of course your transcripts. So I came across an example in my course where people had to get their transcripts verified before applying for a particular course. So make sure that your transcripts are recognized by the university that you're applying to. If not, get the notary sign that you're supposed to get, or whatever that is required, so that you are not getting into a last time hassle. And again, as I'm mentioning again and again, statement of purpose or your personal statement matters a lot. It weighs a lot of success to the application that you'll be applying for. So make sure that you spend a lot of time on it. And so certain courses are like, for example, there's MSc Research in Sustainable Development. So for that, they require a research piece for them to know that why do you want to take this research course. And if you are already having some research thought in your mind, then they would want you to see your research work, like see your research writing. In that case, you have to have a research writing beforehand to apply for that particular course or for the particular scholarship, whichever that you are looking forward to apply. So make sure that you have all this in hand and go through them again and again and again. Get feedbacks from people. Don't be afraid or don't hesitate to get feedbacks, because you never know. Some things you cannot see when you write it on your own, right? So make sure that you get feedback and be well ahead on time, because I kind of feel people who really can get a scholarship sometimes miss it because of the timelines, because of in the last rush. So make sure that you're really ahead. If you're making sure, okay, I'm going to get into this particular university and I might want some scholarship, then make sure that you start the process well ahead. Like the May deadline we told is a very general deadline, but you could start it much before that by doing your background research. So yeah, thank you so much, and you can get back to us if you have any doubts on it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm going to speak about the scholarship opportunities. Um, so broadly, scholarships can either be internal or external. Internal scholarships are either offered um, particularly by a certain university or are specific to a certain program, for instance, a master's in development studies. And oftentimes the internal scholarships are managed by either the department or the university itself. So it's always worth checking with the department website or the university broadly to check whether certain programs have specific scholarships, or if you in specific are eligible for a certain scholarship. So for instance, in the US, you have certain financial aids and fellowships that are present not only just in universities, but related to specific degrees or specific specializations. And the degrees scholarship that you can different countries. I know that even in Geneva, you have certain scholarships that you can be eligible for. And then there are external scholarships that are often either offered by the governments or by private bodies, and they're not specifically tied to a single university or a single course. And these external scholarships become extremely helpful if you have more than one offers, because you can essentially use this scholarship and avail this scholarship for different programs or different universities. But deadlines for these scholarships are often a little bit sooner than application deadlines. So sometimes that can become a little bit tricky, but it's definitely possible. And at the same time, naturally, you have to make a separate application for external scholarships. And some examples of that, again, are like Chevening, the Fulbright scholarship, and scholarships that are specific for different countries in Europe again. In terms of what makes a good scholarship application, essentially a scholarship application doesn't look very different from your university application. And in fact, I would say that your scholarship application should almost be parallel to your university application, and should also match with a lot of your interest in things that you have added in your university application, and should seem cohesive in many ways. But again, in scholarships, they definitely look for other kinds of qualities. For instance, some scholarships are leadership based, and so your statement of purpose or your statement for your scholarship will definitely look a little bit more different from your university statement of purpose, because they are trying to assess you on different parameters. And then there are certain scholarships that you have to keep in mind are definitely tied with certain kinds of commitments. And for instance, the Chevening scholarship requires you to go back to your country after you finished your studies. And then at the same time, some scholarships may have other eligibility criteria, for instance, age, work experience, nationalities, things like that. Next slide, please. Thank you. In terms of development studies courses, the development studies course in Oxford, there are a range of scholarships that are available within the department. And much as it is true for most scholarships in Oxford, a lot of the times you don't have to make a separate application. You are eligible, you're automatically considered for a lot of these scholarships, and oftentimes the decision is internal. At the same time, there are certain bursaries that you can apply for once you've started the course, and again, those are managed by the department. Specifically for Oxford, it's also important to remember that there are some scholarships that have different deadlines to your actual Oxford application, so you need to keep that in mind. And there are certain things that you might need to add in that might not be part of your actual Oxford academic application. Oxford also has a very useful scholarship search tool on their website. So you can go on the website and look for, you can add in some information regarding what is the course you want to study, how long do you want to study, what your nationality is, and it actually very usefully brings out a list of scholarships that you can apply for. An example of that you can see is on your left. In terms of development studies, the Oxford's International Development Department has a range of studies. range of scholarships that are sometimes specific to either your personal conditions or to the course. For instance, our department has an Oxford Refugee Academic Future Scholarship, which is only eligible for candidates who've been displaced due to conflict, persecution, or other serious human rights violations. And at the same time, again, like I said, there are certain scholarships that everyone who applies and gets through is automatically eligible for. Another important point is that because Oxford and Cambridge follow a college-based system, scholarships, Cambridge, you see that you have to put in a preference for your college. And these preferences essentially become really important because when you put in that preference, you become eligible for certain scholarships that the college offers. So, for example, Somerville College in Oxford has a lot of scholarships for Indian nationality students. And so it's important to do your research, especially if you're applying to Oxford and Cambridge, to look into colleges and what are the scholarships they offer when you're making those preferences, because a lot of the times, again, you become automatically eligible for those scholarships if you have stated a certain college as your preference. Next slide, please. Similarly, SOAS also has a range of scholarships for their MSc in Global Development Program. And a lot of these have also been added into the slide. So it's worth checking also on their website and looking into the deadlines and what are the additional things that are needed, or documents or things that you might need besides your original application to facilitate your scholarship applications. Next slide, please. Career options. So like the panelists already mentioned, international development is a very broad and interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary course. And so it's very natural that students end up going in different sectors and doing almost entirely different things. But some of the main career options post the degree are, one of the first is naturally a DPhil, or what we broadly call a PhD. So especially students who do an international development course that is more research focused, a lot of them end up actually extending their research projects into a PhD, either within development studies or within the specific area of interest that they have actually identified. So a lot of them end up doing a PhD in health policy or environmental policy, or end up sticking to international development. Then a lot of students also naturally end up working for INGOs and NGOs because a lot of the skills that they acquire are appreciated in these organizations. A lot of them end up working for the OECD, for the United Nations, or different governmental organizations, and also non-governmental organizations in their own countries. The third is, as one of the panelists mentioned, is an upcoming career option is development consulting. So a lot of students now work for development consultancies, such as Dalberg. Dalberg is one of the big development consultancies, PwC, ICF, Mott MacDonald, etc. These are all development consultancies that actually take in projects for social impact. And a lot of the students end up working as consultants, as research analysts, and in different positions within these consultancies. And then some students end up working in purely in business and finance, again in sort of in roles of consulting, because a lot of the big consulting firms like McKinsey, BCG, and Bain, etc., are expanding into what we now call the ESG sector, which is the environmental, social, and governance sector. It's a huge upcoming sort of shift within consulting, and a lot of these companies hire students and people who have some kind of background in international development and development economics and things like that. And a lot of So people end up working as analysts as well. And then some students also end up joining the media and journalism in different capacities, and yeah, stick to that end of the career options. So yeah, those are broadly some of the places where a lot of students end up pursuing their careers. Next slide, please. Yeah, general tips. Like we already talked about, development studies again is a very interdisciplinary, very multidisciplinary course, and so it's very natural that you might feel confused and overwhelmed as to what you want to do in the end. And so some of the important things to consider is to sort of ask yourself whether you want to acquire a certain kind of practical skill set, or whether you want to have a more academic and academically rigorous course. And this is a very, very important point, because when it's important to understand this, because it essentially will definitely dictate your future career path. So for instance, in my own experience, a lot of my classmates who were more academically inclined found the degree much more helpful, because they eventually want to go into academia and want to do a PhD. But a lot of students who actually want to gain a practical skill set might actually want to look at alternate kind of degrees like development management, which I know like universities like the LSC offers, which are more focused on actually giving you a better practical skill set that you can then use into doing an actual job. So it's very important to look into the courses and see whether the course is more academically rigorous, courses that are more practical, and sort of look into what actually works for you. Also, I was going to say, my internet keeps saying that it's unstable. So if you are not able to hear me, please do let me know. Another thing is that, especially if you are applying for development studies courses that are more academic, and you want to get into academia as in different capacities, it's very, very, very important that you thoroughly research the faculty and the professors, because these people are, and one of these people will end up being your supervisor. And it's very, very important that you see that there are faculty members, professors who have similar interests as you, because if you can't find a supervisor that can support you in your research interests, it actually becomes quite difficult to feel supported, and also to, like, especially if you want to further and you want to get into like academia and do a PhD, it's very important that you choose a department and a faculty member, and you have researched it enough to know that there is someone in the department who can actually help you with the research that you want to do. And it doesn't always have to be exactly similar to what you want to do, but it definitely there should be a certain level of similarity. And again, these things help again in your statement of purpose, where you can very explicitly state that there's a certain professor at the department that I want to work with. And it always is always good, and it always shows the university that you have thoroughly researched their course and their faculty, which is always good. Especially for Oxford, and especially if you're applying for the MPhil program, it's very, very important that you put a lot of emphasis on your research sample, or what we call the writing sample. So Oxford is again one of those universities where you are required to submit a writing sample, and I know that Cambridge requires you to submit a research proposal. So make sure that you submit writing samples that are of good, like of a very good standard, well cited and things like that. But at the same time, they should definitely showcase a certain interest. So for example, in my case, in my statement of purpose, I said that I'm interested in looking at health policy and technology, and how technology is being used in international development. And so it was only natural that the written work that I submitted was somehow related to the interests that I had shown. And that definitely helps, because it definitely helps in the sense that it shows a certain kind of consistency in your research interests, and it shows that you have a clear you have a clear interest in certain things. For instance, in my case, health and technology. And so, yeah, it's very important, especially if you're applying to universities that require a writing sample or a research proposal, that you put a lot of emphasis on that, especially if the master's is a research-based master's. You should apply under the assumption that your research sample and your written work will probably be the most important component of your application. And at the same time, even though it's a multidisciplinary course, it's always to specify what approach you want to. We had students who came from an economics background, from an anthropology background, political science background. And so it's always good to show certain kind of background knowledge, and also specify whether you have a certain approach with which you want to look at a question or look at a research idea. So if, say, for instance, you have an economics background and you want to continue on that, you can always specify that, I want to conduct a mixed method study or a fully quantitative study using econometric tools. If you are someone who's more inclined towards political science or anthropology, you might naturally lean towards more ethnographic methodologies. And so it's always good to state those things, even though it's definitely prone to change. And I know, for instance, in my course, a lot of the people who had an economics background actually ended up being more interested in using ethnographic methodologies or vice versa. So it's not like you definitely have to do it, but it always is a good thing, because it helps the person who's reading your application sort of understand how your previous academic experience and background is going to be useful in your research. But yeah, broadly this, and definitely, like the panelists already mentioned, again, development studies is a very broad course, but then within the courses there are different kinds of degrees that you can actually do if you already have a specified niche. For example, in Oxford, in my department, even though there is a broader MPhil in development studies course, there are courses like development economics if you are from an economics background and you specifically want to look at those want to do those courses, or look and sort of gain those kind of skill set, then you can apply for that. And then there's a course on migration studies if that's your specific interest. There's a course on diplomacy and global governance. There's a course on refugee studies and things like that. So it's good if you have a certain niche and an interest or a background already identified. You can definitely look into more specific and streamlined courses. But if you're someone who's hoping to gain a broader perspective of the degree, then perhaps a more broader master's in international development or development studies will be more useful for you. So yeah, that's about it from my end. And if you guys have any questions, yeah, please feel free to.
Perfect. That was really good and comprehensive. Thank you so much, Anusha, Shrutija, and Janani, for this. I will, now the floor is open for questions. You can either raise your hand and ask your question, or you can put it in chat, and we'll be able to read it and say it out loud. Asking, yes, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Project EduAccess, for doing this. I have a very specific question, so maybe one of the panelists can take it. Is Felix available for those students who already have a master's? I don't think so, right? But if you have any particular insight on it, it'll be really helpful. Like, I have a master's from India itself, but I'm applying for an MPhil/MSc or an MA in the UK. Am I eligible for Felix or not?
No, the Felix is not available for another master's, and yeah,
I
unfortunately.
just wanted to clarify that. I was pretty sure, but I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Yeah. We've done a workshop on the Felix Scholarship, and if you've had a chance to look at that, but I'm just going to drop a link to the workshop in chat. So maybe you can just have a look at the recording and see.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Nisba.
Great. Fatima?
Hi everyone. Thank you for this. It was required at this point. You said that Oxford, of course, Oxford courses are more academically inclined, whereas courses at Sussex are not. Um, but what about LSE is what I want to know. Are courses at LSE also academically inclined? Because I'm somebody who would look more for practical courses. That's one. And the second is there are courses like development practice. MPA in development practice is one course in Brandeis University also I came across. So what is that exactly? Like, yeah.
Uh, okay, I can try and answer that. Um, so again, I'm not very sure, but um, LSE, for instance, has a lot of courses within international development, again, that are like more practical. There are certain courses more broad, there are certain courses that have a certain niche, for instance. So, a very useful thing is to actually look into the course structure. Something that really helped me was to look into the course handbook. So, a lot of these universities have course handbooks, and they very clearly specify what are the courses that you're going to study under that certain master's. And so, if you look into that, you will very clearly be able to see whether the certain degree is more academically rigorous, or am I going to gain a more practical skill set from it. But I know that at Oxford specifically does not offer a program like that, and Oxford is the department is very much invested in making sure that students have a more academically rigorous degree. But I know that there are other universities that offer a range of masters where you have the option to choose whether you want to apply for a more practical hands-on degree, or whether you want to look into something more academic. But I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, yeah.
If I can add on to that, actually, to what Anusha just said, the course I think that you're talking about development practice, right? And I'm not very well versed with the course that you mentioned, but there was a similar course that I researched. So based off that knowledge, I can share that with you. The courses which tend to have this degree or the theme of development practice tend to be more practical oriented instead of being research heavy. Um, with that said, Sussex courses that are offered at Sussex or IDS are taught courses, right? And that is one of the courses that I've done. And they tend to have, or they tend to lend you a more practical sort of insight of working in the development sector. And when I say practical, um, some of the skill set probably that they can offer to you is probably like how to make policy briefs, how to have impact evaluation. So like Anusha mentioned, to go through the course structure and the course handbook, I think it would be really helpful if you can go through those uh, and check out the electives that they have, and the electives like impact evaluation or policy related electives that they offer are sort of electives or courses which tend to give you that practical insight.
Hmm, hmm. Also, Shrutija and Anusha, what I wanted to know is that most scholarships are looking for, your career options, what you're going to do once you come back, and how your country is going to benefit. Now, currently, I'm working at Sambhavna Institute of Public Policy and Politics in Himachal Pradesh. I think there are a lot of lectures done by Manshi Asher in TIS also. I'm sure if you know about this institute. institute, I'm involved in organizing workshops for youth and capacity building workshops for civil society members of civil society organizations. So I have been organizing workshops like interrogating development, which is currently running, which is a 12-day workshop, and many other workshops on caste, gender, everything. Now I want to now this is what I want to do after coming back, probably more as a subject matter expert rather than just organizing workshop. So is that considered as a valid career option, that which is actually going to benefit the country? And because when we talk about development, I'm bothered about the environmental issues, politics, caste, gender, everything, that the intersectional identities of our country, the privileges, everything, mix of everything is what we are doing. But to choose one particular problem and then say that I'm going to do this and it's going to impact like this is something that is very difficult for me right now. So is training, and I can't even say education because I'm not a professor in a university. So I don't know whether these kind of non-profit organizations are even valid, So so is that considered as a valid career option? Of course, after studying, I want to do a lot for the civil society organizations and grassroots organizations. But that is something that I can't mention because I really don't know. I mean, of course, I'm going to come back to my institute and add more value to it.
I understand the question that you have and the concern that you might have. If I can attempt and answer your query, I think it's going to actually be in your favor because it can come under the banner of advocacy and social organization and engagements for youth. That is something that this can be one of the strengths in fact that you have, and you needn't worry about it hampering your SOP or the application that you're submitting. um, with that said, you can always mention the idea of coming back and being a subject matter expert, like you said, right? You're interested in environment, you're interested in organizing or social awareness and campaign and advocacy, like I mentioned. And you can very well write this in your application, and they will be valid for you in your application because that is your journey of how you've come about at this juncture, that you feel that there's a need for you to have sort of a theoretical backing and a theoretical awareness and knowledge of the subject that you want to engage with. And coming back to your own country and the institute that you're working in is only gonna lend you and facilitate that growth for you as a professional and a personal in personal journey. Yeah. If, uh, anybody wants
Thank
to add
you.
in, please.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you so much.
So there's a few questions in chat. Maybe we take one of them and then we go to raised hands. So the question is,
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, go ahead, Miss. I said I already read the question, so I'm happy to answer it.
Okay. I'm just going to read it out once for the benefit of those who are going to be watching the recording. So the question is, I'm interested in development studies. However, I have work experience in finance. I'm interested in public policy, social impact. Would that have an impact on my application, or how do I explain it? So, yeah, anyone, Anusha, if you.
Yeah, I can try and answer that question. I think it should not impact your application at all. I know a lot of people in my course and in the courses above me who have had a finance background, and it's definitely worked in their favor, so it shouldn't be a problem at all. In terms of would that have an impact on my application, how do I explain it? I guess a lot of the people who already have a background in business again end up, like you already mentioned,
if you are not a working professional.
social impact or public policy. So yeah, it definitely should not, it will not impact your application at all. And at the same time, if you're able to sort of draw the link between why you want to shift from purely business or finance background to more impact related work in within business, yeah, it's highly appreciated and useful. So yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Janani, Shrutija, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think Anusha answered it.
Yeah, I mean, because
That's
I mean, for example, I can quote me. Coming from a technical background to governance was a shift that I took, and I think it's all to do with the story that you tell yourself, that you can, you know, show in the papers. Like, why do you want to do this shift? How do you think you can impact being in this field, and what could you contribute, and why this course will be more beneficial if you're given an option or a chance, you know? So it's all about a convincing story that you're going to tell people. At the end is what all matters. So your stream of line should not stop you from not applying for universities, is what I would say, because I am a sitting example for it. It should not impact. So please go ahead.
Right,
And
thank you.
just to add on, I think writing SOP is one of the most truthful sort of, at least it was for me, of why I wanted to do something. Like I said, I've done gender, and it was one of the most truthful events that I could really pick up from my life and really put it on paper of why I want to do it. So if you're thinking of moving or making a shift from finance to a public policy arena or whichever theme that might be, you already have the answer. It's just about just honing that answer and writing it on paper. That's pretty much it.
Amazing. Mubashir, do you want to ask your question?
Yes, thank you. First of all, thanks for the amazing session. My question is basically I'm working in state civil services with 10 years of experience in development sector, and presently I'm holding offers from IDS Sussex and SOS University also in development studies. So I would like to know that which course or which university might be offering a course that will be imparting me with such skills that would be I will find helpful in my future career in state civil services. Some skills like that, or some value addition, which course will make as per which will suit to my future job. Thank you.
um so I think this is something that my co-panelists have already mentioned. I think it's about the idea of the skills or the subject matter expertise that you would like to have in your professional journey. And like we've discussed, the course handbook can be very helpful for you in this matter. Congratulations, first of all, for holding these two offers.
Thank
um,
you.
but yeah, being an alumni from IDS, I can definitely say that I've met people who were civil, who were in this line of work, and they came to development IDS for pursuing different courses. So it's really about the skill, the course, and the electives and the faculty that you'd like to engage with. Um, so it's more about what you would want out of the course.
Yes, yes, that's right. Thank you, thank you.
And I just wanted to add one thing. Well, yeah, first of all, congratulations. I know for a fact that, for instance, if you are someone who's planning to not pursue a PhD and you immediately want to go back into your job, for instance, I would say that universities like the IDS, I'm not very sure about SOAS, but I definitely know that the IDS is much more like they give you courses on impact evaluation and things like that that you can definitely use in your job. While as it, say, for instance, in my case, it's a very academic degree, and we did not learn those things at all. And it was very much about theories and reading very densely into readings and producing written work on that. So again, like my co-panelist already mentioned, yeah, it's worth looking into the handbook, but also, yeah, looking into, again, what are the electives, and if you want to do a PhD, then perhaps Oxford, or if SOAS has a more academically rigorous degree, would be more useful for you. But if you're someone who definitely is sure that you want to go back and work after your master's, then perhaps IDS would be a better option.
So there's another question. It says, I have a specific question about the SOP writing process for the MPhil in development studies at Oxford. The application requires sharing what my potential research thesis will comprise. How do I approach this portion? And how do I include citations through the mention of literature for this section or the application at large?
Okay, thank you. So yeah, I think in terms of how you can approach the portion on potential research thesis, like I already mentioned in the slides, you don't have to be very, very, very specific, but as specific as you are is always helpful. So again, if you have a certain interest, either say for instance in environmental policy or health, or I don't know, anything, conflict and peace, you can start with that. And if you have a certain research question, that's always helpful. For instance, in my case, even though I did not end up using the same research question for my thesis, and actually my thesis was entirely different from what my SOP said, but I was very specific in what I wanted to look at. So it was like my SOP clearly was like, I'm interested in looking at technology and health policy XYZ. In that, my thesis is possibly going to be about XYZ. This is how this professor is going to help me. This is how these courses are going to help me on this specific thesis. And it's especially important if you're applying for the MPhil in development studies at Oxford, because a huge component of the degree is going to a certain country and doing your field work in person and then writing a 30,000 word thesis. So they expect you to have some idea of what you want to study, because it's a huge element of the degree. And in terms of how do you do citations, I don't think you are supposed to do citations on your SOP at all. If you think that citing a certain author or someone is going to help you, then surely, but I don't think it's supposed to be like, you're not expected to do citations. It's more about writing about your interests and why you're motivated to do a certain kind of research, and how the university and the department is going to help you. And you should not be worrying about citations. At least I didn't do that. Yes, if you're writing a writing sample, of course your writing sample should be well cited, and there should be a bibliography in the end. And yeah, mention of literature, like I said, again, it's up to you. I didn't do that. What I focused more on was if there is a certain professor or a certain course in the department or in the program that will be helpful for me. And I never cited any authors from a certain author, but I know that it's not uncommon to do that, and a lot of people do actually sometimes cite an author that has motivated them. So it's entirely up to you, but yeah, I hope that's.
Thank you, Anusha. Thanks. That was helpful.
Oh, great. I was like, I wasn't saying that. There's one question that came in my personal chat that I just want to address. So the question is, I'm doing a master's in development from university in India, and I'm looking for another master's in a specialized development studies program abroad. So they want to focus on religion and development, focusing on women from religious minorities. So they're asking if there are any universities that might be relevant for something like this. Maybe I'll just address this a little bit, and then if anyone has any thoughts. So unfortunately, this, as I said, I don't think this is something that we'll be really able to answer. And I don't think the panelists will be able to tell you which university might be good. I think this is something that you'll have to research on your own. Again, so one is that you may not find specific programs that address, say religion and development, but there might be courses like the one Shrutija is doing, say gender and development, or similar courses where there is a component of religion that you can bring in your research. Similarly, you can look at women's studies programs more generally that do development. For example, the Oxford Masters in Women and Gender Studies has a module on gender and development where a lot of focus is actually on religious minorities and women. So I would say that look at departments and look at professors who are working on this and see which department they're in, and accordingly you might be able to find course that fits you. But again, this is something that you'll have to research on your own. I don't think we can really speak towards it, but if anyone knows of anything that might be helpful there. Great. Fatima, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah. So all the courses, development courses at Sussex do appeal to me. So I wanted especially gender and development also. So if you can share your experience, Shrutija. Also, is it India specific? I understand if the professor has some research background on India, then of course it is India specific. But how is it at Sussex?
Um, well, I think one of the main contributing factors of why I really enjoyed gender and development at Sussex or IDS is, and I have to give the credit to the cohort that I had. And that was one of the most eye-opening courses in terms of the diversity that I've seen. It's not specific to India, Fatima. It's more about international development and gender and development. I am a feminist. I'm a hardcore feminist. And if you're somebody who really enjoys to be like in a feminist bubble, gender and development is the space for you. Because we sort of created a feminist space for ourselves, where we could bring in anything and everything, from our professional to our personal. Um, and it's uh, sure, the courses that were offered are really amazing. And recently they actually changed the course conveners. So one of the course conveners actually is from India now. I mean, she is at IDS, but she has her origins from India. um and the other course convener I know has a specific research area of interest with respect to the Palestinian and the Israel conflict that is happening. With that said, there are numerable electives that are offered within gender and development. I am somebody who wanted to understand or study gender in its entirety as a course and not as an elective. And that was one of my major motivating factors of applying for gender and development at ITS. Um, yes, the course is wide variety and it's not specific to India. You have people coming from different parts of the world with different experiences. You can have 1 year of experience, you can have voluntary work experience, and you can have 10 years of experience. But it's a very interesting course, and you also get to interact with other people from different courses like development studies, governance and public policy, and so on and forth. So it's different modules that are offered within gender and development. So if you're somebody who's interested in that, I would urge you to also look at the electives that they are offering and the specific areas and research if you want to pursue, and the courses that are offered and the conveners that are for the course.
Thank you. Thank you.
So the last question in chat is, I have a rather general question about the kind of course to opt for. So is it better to choose a course with specific specializations like education, migration, etc., or should we go for a more general course like development studies or international development? So I guess just more generally why you chose your specific programs and why you think, or if you have any suggestions on when to choose which one.
I guess in my case, I didn't have a development studies background, so for me, it made more sense to have a course that was much more broad. I really, especially for Oxford, enjoyed that part of the degree was a foundational course where they teach you anthropology, economics, political science. So you get a sort of a base of different disciplines. I also really wanted to do research and I wanted to go on the field. So those are factors that eventually impacted why I chose a certain degree. Again, in my opinion, the 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 uh, the only deciding factor for me personally was that. And if you already have a specific interest or a niche that you're very, very sure that you want to pursue, whether it's gender or health, then maybe it's more useful for you to do those specific programs because they will offer you courses that are tailored to that specific interest through a developmental lens. But if you're someone who perhaps is new to the course and wants to gain a bigger, a broader, holistic, perspective of the discipline and then decide where you want to venture, then maybe a broad course will be useful for you. So again, in the end, it's more about deciding your interest and what fits well for you. That's what I think. But if other co-panelists have something to add.
I think you've covered it, Anusha. Thanks.
Okay, I think that's about it. We don't have any more questions. If there's any question,
I'm sorry, I did get a question through my direct
yes,
message, and
go
if
for
I
it.
can just read the question out for everybody. Um, so this is somebody who's asking basically that I'm currently pursuing e-commerce and looking for work experience in corporate. And they have inclination towards social impact and development sector. So they were hoping to apply for development management or studies afterwards. But but they are also aware that there is a recessive job market and their chances of applying or getting good work experiences seems to be waning at the moment. So they wanted to ask, in case they have a gap year, what should they involve in terms of value addition, which would help them justifying it later for the application and will be fruitful for the masters as well.
So you can answer that if you want.
Okay. Well, I understand that the job market in the development sector is kind of I don't have the word to describe it really at the moment. We all share the sentiment, I'm sure. Um, in terms of how would you like to or what can you do in the gap year that you're experiencing and that you have at the moment, if there are any sort of courses, free courses, Coursera has a lot of courses that they offer online and for free. So you can also try to apply to those courses, and there are, I don't know, a month-long courses. It depends really on the course that you're wanting to do. So there are different ways that you can go about it. One is basically, like I said, through course, any extra and additional course that you want to do. Another thing is through voluntary opportunities. And while I understand getting full-time work experience in the development sector might not be coming your way, but voluntary opportunities, I'm pretty sure, are always open with NGOs. So you can work part-time with them. You know, uh, there are a ton of NGOs that you can work with, which will be more than happy to have you as a volunteer. With that said, yeah, I mean, those are my suggestions that come at the top of my head. I would invite Anusha and my other panelists to please help me with the question and put
Uh,
your insights. Yeah.
I already put it in the chat, but I'm really bad with technology. I think part of the question was also if it's going to disadvantage you in the application if you've taken a gap year. It's definitely not. So many of my classmates took out a gap year before they joined the master. And just how Shrutija mentioned, a lot of them were volunteering, a lot of them were doing a job, a lot of them were working as researchers. Some of them were not even doing anything, they were just traveling or giving a course online. So it definitely doesn't disadvantage you at all. There is an expectation on the end of the people who are looking at your application that you have taken. It's completely normal, and they do expect people to take a year off before someone starts a master's to perhaps think about what you want to do. Especially in my year, it was also COVID, so again it was expected that a lot of people might have taken a year out because they just simply did not want to do a degree online. So you can have different reasons, and it never puts you at any disadvantage if you've had a year and either you've done something or taken a year off. And like she said, yeah, volunteering, doing research assistantships, things like that are always helpful, and they only add to your application.
Yeah, I agree with you both. And sometimes having a gap year also helps you to figure out what you actually want to do and not do. And putting that also sometimes pushes your applications further, because you really thought about what you want and what you don't want and then jump right into any decision. So you can always make it into your advantage. So it should not be a problem at all.
Wonderful. I think that's about it. We don't. Did any of you receive any other questions? Great. I don't have any other questions in my DM, or I don't see any questions in chat that haven't been answered, or any raised hands. So I think we are at we can call it now. So thank you so much, Anusha, Janani, and Shrutija for joining us today and for giving a very comprehensive presentation and for very patiently answering all of the questions. I'm sure it helped a lot of the participants and will help those people who watch a recording of this workshop. I've put a link in chat to our YouTube channel, which is where we upload all of our public workshops, and we'll upload a recording of this session on our YouTube channel as well. If you're not a mentee with us, then feel free to reach out to us for any doubts about your applications at info@projecteduaccess.com. I've put the email address in chat, so please have a look at that. And yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us
Thank
on
you.
Christmas Eve.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank
you
I hope
all.
you all have a
Happy
nice
Christmas and New Year, guys.
Christmas and New Year. Yes.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you, everyone.